If you're in perimenopause or menopause and your blood sugar suddenly feels unpredictable, stubborn, or completely out of control, this video may be the most important one you watch this year, because what's happening inside your body right now is not random. It's not because you suddenly can't handle carbs anymore, and it's not because your metabolism somehow broke overnight. Today, I'm going to give you 7 lifestyle strategies that stabilize blood sugar specifically during menopause, not by restriction, not by fear, and not by chasing numbers, but by restoring insulin sensitivity at the cellular level, which is the real issue underneath everything you're experiencing. And here's my promise to you at the start of this video. If you understand and apply what you're about to learn today, you'll know exactly why your blood sugar changed during menopause, what actually controls it, and how to bring it back down in a way that works with your biology instead of fighting against it. Most women are told that rising blood sugar during menopause is just something they have to accept, that it's aging, hormones, or genetics, and that the only real option is eating less, cutting carbs, or tightening control. But that advice completely misses the root cause. Blood sugar problems during menopause are not caused by carbohydrates. They are caused by a loss of insulin sensitivity, especially in the liver and muscle, which menopause can accelerate if you don't know how to respond. And the reason these next 7 strategies work so powerfully is because they all pull in the same direction. They reduce fat inside cells, restore insulin signaling, calm liver glucose output, and allow glucose to finally move where it's supposed to go. Let's zoom out for just a moment so this clicks. Here's the big picture that most people never learn. Think of your muscle and liver cells like sinks. Glucose is the water. Insulin opens the drain. When insulin sensitivity is high, glucose flows easily into cells and gets burned for energy. But when fat builds up inside those cells, which becomes more likely during menopause, the drain gets clogged, insulin can't work efficiently, and glucose backs up into the bloodstream. That's when you see higher fasting glucose, bigger spikes, more belly fat, more fatigue, and a growing sense that food is suddenly the enemy. The goal is not to avoid glucose. The goal is to clear the clog. And that's exactly what the next 7 strategies do. Let's dive in. Number 1, clear the clog with low-fat, plant-based, whole food eating. Yes, this absolutely works. If you take nothing else from this video, take this. Lowering saturated fat while increasing fiber-rich whole foods is one of the fastest ways to restore insulin sensitivity during menopause. This isn't theory. It's been demonstrated repeatedly in human trials. In a 16-week randomized controlled trial published in JAMA Network Open, adults following a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet significantly reduced liver fat and intramuscular fat while improving insulin sensitivity without calorie restriction or weight loss prescriptions. Mechanistically, this works because saturated fat rapidly interferes with insulin signaling, while fiber-rich carbohydrates help sweep fat out of liver and muscle cells, restoring normal glucose transport. This is why people inside the Mastering Diabetes coaching program often eat more carbohydrates than ever and see better blood sugar than ever. Not because carbs are magic, but because insulin sensitivity is improving. I know you might be confused about what to eat if you decide to give this a try. So we've made a free guide with recipes that help you reverse insulin resistance. Not only that, but this guide also includes a free chapter from our book, Mastering Diabetes, that fully explains what actually causes insulin resistance and how to reverse it. Comment well below and we'll send it your way. It's free. Number 2, don't skip meals. Use them to calm your liver. When blood sugar is high, most people instinctively skip food. But if you're already insulin resistant, that instinct often backfires. Not because fasting is bad, but because your liver interprets skipped meals as a stress signal, not a healing one. When you don't eat, hormones like cortisol and glucagon rise, sending a clear message to your liver to release glucose into the bloodstream, even if you didn't consume any food at all. That's why fasting glucose can climb hours after eating nothing. Using meals strategically works better. A comprehensive review published in the Journal of Nutrition analyzed decades of human studies on dietary fiber and insulin resistance and found that higher fiber intake consistently improves insulin sensitivity and lowers fasting insulin levels even without intentional calorie restriction or weight loss. Here's why that matters for your liver. Dietary fiber, especially from whole plant foods, like legumes, vegetables, fruits, and intact grains, slows glucose absorption, reduces insulin demand, and improves insulin signaling between insulin and liver cells. At the same time, fiber feeds beneficial gut bacteria, which produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate and propionate. These compounds directly reduce liver inflammation, improve hepatic insulin sensitivity, and suppress excess glucose production by the liver. In other words, fiber doesn't just blunt blood sugar spikes. It changes the environment inside your liver so it stops releasing unnecessary glucose in the first place. That's the root issue behind stubborn fasting blood sugar. So instead of skipping meals, the goal is to use food as a calming signal. Large, fiber-rich meals built around vegetables, legumes, fruit, and whole grains tell your liver, we're safe, you can stand down. As insulin sensitivity improves, glucose output slows, fasting numbers come down, and food stops feeling like the enemy. Food isn't the threat. Used correctly, it's the signal that restores control. Number 3, churn muscles into glucose vacuums immediately after eating. One of the most powerful tools for lowering blood sugar during menopause is also one of the most underestimated, moving your body after you eat. And this isn't fitness advice or generic lifestyle talk. This is about physiology. A randomized crossover trial published in Diabetes Care examined how short bouts of walking after meals affected blood sugar compared to a single longer walk performed at another time of day, even though the total amount of walking was exactly the same. What researchers found was striking. When participants walked for about 15 minutes after each meal, they experienced significantly lower post-meal glucose spikes and better overall 24-hour glucose control compared to sitting after meals and doing one longer walk later in the day. In other words, when you move matters just as much as how you move. To understand why this matters so much, you need to understand how glucose normally gets into your muscles. Under ideal conditions, insulin acts like a key that unlocks muscle cells so glucose can leave the bloodstream and be used for energy. But during menopause, insulin sensitivity often declines. Fat accumulates inside muscle and liver cells, the locks become sluggish, and insulin struggles to do its job efficiently. Glucose stays in the bloodstream longer, and blood sugar rises. Here's where movement changes the equation. When your muscles contract, they activate a completely different pathway for glucose uptake, one that does not rely on insulin at all. Muscle contraction signals glucose transporters, known as GLUT4, to move to the surface of muscle cells. Once there, glucose is pulled directly out of the bloodstream and into the muscle, even if insulin signaling is impaired. Think of it as opening a side door when the front door is stuck. This insulin-independent pathway is especially important during menopause, when insulin is already under more strain due to hormonal shifts and increased fat storage inside cells. Walking after meals gives glucose somewhere to go immediately, reducing how long it circulates in the bloodstream and reducing the demand placed on insulin. Post-meal glucose spikes don't just affect your numbers in the moment. When glucose stays elevated after meals, the liver reads that as metabolic stress and often responds by releasing even more glucose later, especially overnight. That's one of the main reasons fasting blood sugar becomes so stubborn during menopause. Lowering post-meal glucose with movement reduces the total glucose load your body has to manage across the day, giving insulin signaling and liver regulation a chance to stabilize instead of constantly playing catch-up. In the Diabetes Care study, this showed up as better glucose control, not just after meals, but across the entire 24-hour period. This is why movement isn't about burning calories. It's about changing glucose traffic inside your body. So here's what you gotta do. After each major meal, move your body for 10 to 20 minutes. Keep it steady and purposeful. A brisk walk, stairs, or indoor movement that gets large muscles working without exhausting you. If you can only do this once per day, start with dinner. That's when insulin sensitivity is lowest and when post-meal glucose most strongly affects fasting blood sugar the next morning. Movement doesn't replace nutrition. It amplifies your body's ability to use it. Number 4, preparing the battlefield with hydration. Hydration doesn't get nearly enough credit in blood sugar control, especially during menopause when physiology shifts and every system is operating with tighter margins. When you're dehydrated, 2 things happen that directly affect glucose. First, the water volume in your bloodstream decreases. This raises glucose levels even if nothing else has changed. Second, your body raises vasopressin, a hormone your brain releases to conserve water, and that same hormone also signals your liver to produce more glucose. That's not abstract theory. It's been shown in human research. In the H2O metabolism pilot study, adults who habitually drank low amounts of water and then added 1.5 liters of extra water per day for 6 weeks experienced significant reductions in fasting glucose, and that happened without changes in weight or diet. What this study tells us is not that water magically flushes glucose out, but that by increasing hydration, you can lower vasopressin activity and take the pressure off the liver's glucose production. The physiology makes sense. Vasopressin rises when the body senses dehydration. Elevated vasopressin stimulates hepatic glucose output. Chronically high hepatic glucose output is a major driver of stubborn fasting blood sugar. So water doesn't act like medicine in isolation. It creates the conditions under which everything else you're doing, diet, movement, sleep, stress management, hormone balance, actually has a fighting chance to work. Think of hydration like preparing the battlefield. If the terrain is hostile, even the best strategies struggle. If the terrain is suited to your goals, those same strategies become far more effective. Start your day with a glass of water and aim to add roughly 40 to 60 ounces of additional plain water spread across the day, especially if your usual intake is low or if your fasting glucose tends to drift up. You don't need to chug a gallon at once. The goal is steady, consistent hydration that keeps vasopressin lower and the liver calmer so insulin signaling and glucose transport can operate more smoothly. Hydration isn't optional, it's foundational. When you prepare the battlefield with water, every other tool becomes stronger. Number 5, churn down liver glucose release by calming your nervous system. Blood sugar is regulated not just by food, but by stress hormones. When you're anxious, rushed, or panicking about a number, cortisol and adrenaline signal your liver to release glucose, regardless of what you ate. A randomized clinical study published in Frontiers in Physiology found that women with type 2 diabetes who added slow breathing and mindfulness meditation to their routine experienced significant reductions in both fasting glucose and cortisol compared to exercise alone, even without changes in diet. This shows that calming the nervous system changes the brain to liver signal, reducing unnecessary glucose release and improving glycemic control. This matters even more during menopause when stress hormones tend to stay elevated longer and the liver becomes more responsive to stress signals. So here's something that you can start applying today. Use brief, consistent stress reduction practices each day. Slow breathing, meditation, or gentle yoga, especially during high stress moments or before meals. The goal isn't perfection, but signaling safety to your nervous system so your liver can stand down. Number 6, respect your body clock to lower 24-hour blood sugar averages. Insulin sensitivity follows a circadian rhythm. Your body is most insulin sensitive earlier in the day and progressively less sensitive as the evening goes on. By late night, your liver is primed to release glucose, not store it, and insulin has a harder time doing its job. That's why eating late doesn't just affect post-meal numbers. It raises overnight glucose output and pushes fasting blood sugar higher the next morning. This isn't theoretical. A randomized crossover trial published in Nutrients compared eating the exact same dinner at 6 p.m. versus 9 p.m. with calories, macronutrients, and activity held constant. When participants ate earlier, their average 24-hour blood glucose was significantly lower. Overnight glucose fluctuations improved and metabolic Metabolic responses the next morning were more favorable, despite no change in how much they ate. The only variable that changed was timing. Physiologically, this happens because late eating forces your liver to manage incoming glucose at a time when circadian signals are telling it to release glucose instead. Earlier meals align food intake with your natural insulin sensitivity, reducing unnecessary nocturnal glucose production and easing the load on insulin signaling overnight. This is why finishing dinner at least 3 hours before bed supports fasting glucose, not because of calories, but because it gives your liver the right signals at the right time. Timing doesn't replace nutrition. It determines how efficient your body can use it. Number 7, follow the trend, not the spike. Fasting glucose is one of the clearest markers of liver insulin sensitivity. When fasting numbers trend downward over weeks, it means liver fat is clearing and insulin signaling is improving. Tracking consistently without judgment allows you to see which behaviors actually move the needle. As insulin sensitivity improves, foods that once caused spikes will stop doing so. That's how you know the root cause is healing. Start tracking your fasting blood sugar levels daily. So here's the big takeaway. Menopause does not doom you to high blood sugar. The problem is not carbs, it's fat inside cells. Fix that and the entire system begins to correct itself. These strategies don't work because they hack blood sugar. They work because they remove the reasons blood sugar is high in the first place. If you want help applying this in real life with meals that improve insulin sensitivity and support hormonal health during menopause, comment well below. We'll send you a free guide with low-fat, high-fiber recipes designed to help your cells become insulin sensitive again. And remember this, that number on your glucose meter is not a verdict, it's feedback. And now you know exactly how to respond. If this video helped you, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone navigating menopause and high blood sugar right now. Until next time, keep those carbs high and that A1C low.